everyone, this is Irish and now I am tasked to discuss you all about neoliberalism, the city who had two navels, explores colonial and neoliberal architecture. But before anything else, let's first discuss what is neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is defined as the 20th century resurgence of 19th century ideas associated with economic liberalism and free market capitalism. It is generally associated with policies of economic liberalization, including privatization, deregulation, globalization, free trade, austerity, and reduction in government spending in order to increase the role of the private sector in the economy and society. However, the defining features of neoliberalism in both thought and practice that have been the subject of substantial scholarly debate. In policymaking, neoliberalism was part of a paradigm shift away from the prevailing Keynesian economic consensus that existed prior to the persistent stagflation of the 1970s. So this year, the Philippines, for the second time in the history, has a national pavilion at the Architectural of Belize. This endeavor is largely due to the Senator Lauren Legarda, with support from Virgilio Almario, chairman of the National Commission for Culture and Arts. The theme for this year's 60th Venice International Architecture exhibit is Free Space, co-curated by Yvonne Farrell and Shelley McNamara. It explores new ways of thinking and seeing the world, of inventing solutions where architecture provides for the well-being and dignity of each citizen on our fragile planet. Now, according to the curators, free space can be a space for opportunity, a democratic space unprogrammed and free for uses not yet conceived. There is an exchange between people and buildings that happens even if not intended or designed, so buildings themselves find ways of sharing and engaging with people over time. Long after the architecture has left the scene, architecture has an active as well as passive life. This year's theme, Free Space, encompasses freedom to imagine the free space of the memory, binding past, present, and future together. So building on inherited cultural layers, weaving the archaic with the contemporary. The curator of our National Pavilion, Edson Cabalfin, draws on Nick Joaquin's 1961 novel, The Woman Who Had Two Navels, as his theme for the Philippine entry. Just as the protagonist in Nick Joaquin's story finds herself caught between traditional values of the past and the present. So the city who had two navels focuses on the architecture of our colonial past and the present. The curator of our National Pavilion, Edson Cabalfin, draws on Nick Joaquin's 1961 novel entitled The Woman Who Had Two Navels as the theme for the Philippine entry. Just as the protagonist in Nick Joaquin's story finds herself caught between traditional values of the past and the present. So the city who had two navels focuses on the architecture of our colonial past and neoliberal urbanism. So the latter term refers to about the dominance of these two trends and how they hinder the ability of architects to form a future style. So the physical installation of the pavilion itself is dynamic and inviting. So the large square room with a high ceiling is divided by two oval convex freestanding panels almost the entire length of the room. So these two panels, representing the projects of the groups chosen to work on new ideas, create a central area showing Yeson Banal's video of prominent landmarks within the greater Metro Manila area and beyond, the Metro Cemetery, Chinatown, Mountain Pinatubo, Subic U.S. Naval Base, Bonifacio Global City, Rockwell, Eco Center, Manila Hotel, and among the others. So the viewer immediately drawn to the film that it is made aware of the effect of colonial architecture plays in shaping neoliberalism structures and development. So personally, I do not see these tasks as conflicting, but rather as building upon each other in creating our cities. So granted that Western architecture was not intrinsic to the ancestral Philippine way of living, but with colonialism, we embrace it and move on. For an architecture to be successful, it must accomplish this in aesthetically uplifting manner. In historic times, cities were built to show the beauty, the power, and the wealth of a people. Structures were testaments to this and were made to stand the test of time. Today, showing wealth and power tend to be more important than beauty. So mall as social spaces, the expansion of residential subdivision, encroaching in peripheral farmlands, the homogeneity of commercial areas, having the same fast food chain restaurants, fast fashion shops, convenience stores, and etc., as well as traffic congestions, are among the visual topics addressed by the Banal's video, Untitled Formation, Concrete Supernatural, Pixel and Bound. One sees that neoliberalism architecture has often been reduced to a formula without creativity. Now, moving forward, another theme of the Philippine Pavilion focused on studying how colonialism and neoliberalism could best work toward shaping our future. So, a consortium of a NGO of architects and planners, TAO, Pilipinas in Quezon City, and four universities, the UP Diliman, UP Mindanao, University of San Carlos in Solog, Cebu, and De La Salle College of St. Benaldi was established. So each group chose a site to study and develop in whichever manner they saw fit. The University of San Carlos in Sulug chose to focus in Colon Street, the oldest in the Philippines. So their project titled Current of Unity. So envisioned Colon Street as major thoroughfare linking coexisting with a new development of high-rise structures encompassing current buildings. So doing so in reinvents the area into a hub of social activity. So another one, we have here the UP Mindanao. So UP Mindanao chose the existing informal settlements of the ocean's edge of the population in Davao City. So to counter the extreme modern trends, they foresee Davao City developing the group uses indigenous motifs in local architecture to recreate the floating village into what they call Badjao Eco-Village Empowerment through indigenous architecture. We have here the De La Salle College of San Benaldi chose the Pasig River. So Manila focusing on Binondo and Intramuros. Foreseeing the Philippines in 2050, it explores these areas under the three colonial powers, were subjugated to as well as being a hyper-virtual reality city. Moving forward, we have also here the UP Diliman. So UP Diliman is a colonial institution, chose its own campus as its project. So high grades, a contraction of hyperrealistic projections and conceptual grids, explores the possibilities of colonialism and neoliberalism of being highly built and minimally built, highly vegetated and minimally vegetated, within the framework of interacting conceptual grids. Now, the TEL Filipinas is a non-profit organization created by two women architects and has helped those with the financial means to design low-cost structures that are functional and aesthetically pleasing. Although our exhibition offers various ways of dealing with the needs of the Filipino people and shows the talent of our young architects, sadly it did not take home any of the coveted prizes. But this year, there were two awards of special mention. One went to Rahul Mehrotra, born in Mumbai, India, and a professor of a Harvard University for his unsubsuming approach in his project dealing with intimate and socially hierarchical space, and the other to Andra Matin from Bandung, Indonesia, for his sensitive installation integrating traditional form and material into modernism. So I think that's it for my discussion, which is all about the neoliberalism. The city who had two navels explores colonial and neoliberal architecture. I do really hope that you will learn something from me, and I do really appreciate your effort just to view this video, and thank you so much for listening. God bless us all.
And now, let's go forward to the topic all about the post campaign. So, let me explain to you the typology that is shown in the presentation. So, the first one shows the punctuated background. Another is the party strategies, the traditional politicians, the marketing experts, and professionalism and consultants. So in claim 1, it is a mixed messaging due to multiple sources of post-campaign messaging. So Poe has more traditional politicians and marketing experts. So less party strategists and professional consultants. So this is the mixed inputs from traditional politicians and marketing experts. So in claim 2, the typology in claim 2 is the activation of post-campaigning messaging was relatively passive and reactionary. So the inability to have simultaneous activations of campaign messaging has recorded the campaign helpless against the assertion of message of other candidates. The focus on informative campaigning can be seen as a mere reaction to first, the disqualification case filed against her, and second, to the emerging popularity of Duterte. So in claim 3, the typology is the message of Poe's fight for her citizenship substantially undermined to hold of the master messaging. So here are some of the campaign messaging that were appropriated by the general public. So we have here the number 1, the walang iwanan, the gobernong may puso, kababaihan, the tapusin ang Indo from an advocacy of changing governance. It has become an advocacy of surviving the electional protest. So the succeeding messaging are reactionary to Duterte. So the last one, in claim number 4, the lack of professionalism of electoral campaigning allow the problem of distraction to happen. Campaign professionalization means the overall changes in electoral campaigning which involve campaign actors who embody the skills, competences, and disposition, utilization of new communicative tools and resources, organization of ethos, dynamics, and outcomes that are objectivized toward winning an election. And the last one is the strategic and tactical campaigning by Gibson and Romil 2009. So in claim number 4, we can understand the lack of professionalization of the electoral campaigning, that it allows as a problem and a distraction happen to Poe. So Poe is relatively weak on these 4 areas. So index that is used nowadays in measuring the level of professionalization, the campaign consultants are composed of traditional politicians and marketing experts, paid media, reliance on TV ads, weak on social media presence, free media, and focus on the DQ case. So that ends for my topic, all about the typology of Poe.
Hi everyone, my name is Gilnay Miranda, and my assigned topic is all about aura, biopolitics, and necropolitics. So, I will discuss first what is aura. Okay, the term was used by Walter Benjamin in his influential 1936 essay, The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. Benjamin argued that even the most perfect reproduction of a work of art is lacking in an element, its presence, in time and space, its unique existence at the place where it happens to be, and also, he referred this unique cultural context. One of this is its presence in time and space as its aura. So, aura is a quality integral to an artwork that cannot be communicated through mechanical reproduction techniques such as photography. The aura includes a sensory experience of distance between the reader and the work of art. Thus, the aura has disappeared in the modern age because art has become reproducible. And the next topic is all about biopolitics. So, biopolitics is an intersectional field between human biology and politics. It is a political wisdom taking into consideration the administration of life and the locality's populations as its subject. To quote Michel Foucault, it is to ensure, sustain, and multiply life, to put this life in order. The term was coined by Rudolf Jalon, a political scientist who also coined the term geopolitics in his 1905 two-volume work The Great Powers. K. Jalon sought to study the civil war between social groups comprising the state from a biological perspective and thus named his putative discipline biopolitics. In K. Jalon, organists view the state was a quasi-biological organism, a super-individual creature. However, biopolitics is a technology of power that grew up on the basis of disciplinary power, in which word discipline is about the control of individual bodies and control of entire populations. So, Foucault discusses the basic definition of the practices of the neoliberal art of the government. Let's move on about necropolitics. So, necropolitics is the use of social and political power to dictate how some people may live and how some must die. Achille Mbembe, the author of On the Post-Colony, was the first scholar to explore the term in depth in his 2003 article, and later his 2019 book of the same name. Necropolitics is often discussed as an extension of biopower, the Foucauldian term for the use of social and political power to control people's lives. Foucault first discusses the concepts of biopower and biopolitics in his 1976 work, which is The Will to Knowledge, The History of Sexuality, volume. Foucault presents biopower as a mechanism for protecting, but acknowledges that this protection often manifests itself as subjugation of non-normative populations. Mbembe's concept of necropolitics acknowledges that contemporary state-sponsored death cannot be explained by the theories of biopower and biopolitics, stating that under the conditions of necropower, the lines between resistance and suicide, sacrifice and redemption, martyrdom and freedom are blurred. To further understand, necro comes from the Greek root nekros, meaning corpse. Necropolitics then translates to the politics of death. Philosopher Achille Mbembe describes necropolitics as the capacity to define who matters and who does not, who is disposable and who is not. In other words, necropolitics is a framework that illuminates how governments assign differential value to human life.
This time, let us move forward to Vita Activa, which is written by Hannah Arendt. Human Condition. She talks about human condition that was published in the year 1958 by Hannah Arendt's account of how human activities should be and have been understood throughout Western history. Arendt is so interested with Vita Activa, which means in our language, active life. Arendt introduces the term Vita Activa or active life by distinguishing it from Vita Contemplativa or contemplative life. When it comes to Vita Activa, it means that living in a way that integrates physical activity into everyday routines such as walking, running, biking to the office, and so on. While on the other hand, contemplative life, a life that is characterized by solitude and prayers. According to Hannah Arendt, there are three sorts of activities of Vita Activa, and these are the following. First, we have the public and private realm. In public, action was being performed, while in private, the site of the household ruled by its head of the family, meaning to say, the head of the family took care of needs for food, shelter, and any biological necessities of the family. In contrast, in public realm, there has been a realm of freedom from these biological necessities, a realm in which one could distinguish oneself through great words and great deeds. If the person was not able to take care of one's biological necessities, he or she could not be free and could participate in the public realm as a free person among equals. Slaves and subordinated women were confined to private realm wherein they meet their biological necessities through the head of their family. Next, we have the labor. Labor is defined as a human activity directed of meeting biological necessities for self-preservation and the reproduction of the species. As humans, we are job holders for our survival. We must perform our jobs in order to meet our needs. That is why labor does not come to end, while its fruits does not last longer because they are quickly consumed by us, because our needs are needed every day. After labor, we have also work. Work has its beginning and ending. This involves an element of violation and violence, in which the worker interrupts nature in order to obtain and shape raw materials. For example, a tree is cut down to obtain wood, or the earth is mined to obtain metals. Last, we have the action. This includes both speech and action by which humans disclose themselves to others. Not that action is always consciously guiding such disclosure. Disclosure means a fact that is made known. Action is the means by which we distinguish ourselves from others as unique and unexchangeable beings. With humans, unlike with other beings, this is not just a question of who we are, but of who is each individually. This time, let us move forward to the Vita Activa and the modern age. There are three great events of the modern age. First, we have the discovery of America. Next, ensuing exploration of the whole earth. And lastly, we have the Reformation. According to Arendt, none of these events have been foreseen. They happened suddenly and had repercussions their instigators indeed. There are many scientific evolutions that are existing today, but the outcome of these scientific evolutions is that current theories have become so bizarre and perhaps no one can grasp the world they describe. Next, we have the ISE and RSE by Louis Althusser. Althusser is a structuralist Marxist. His arguments are why subjects are obedient, why people follow the law, and why there isn't a revolt or revolution against capitalism. For him, a state or nation is determined by the capitalist mode of production and formed to protect its interests. There are two major mechanisms for ensuring people within a state behave according to the rules of the state even when it's not in their best interest in regard to their class positions to do so. These are the RSA or repressive state apparatuses. This means enforcing behavior directly, such as the police and the criminal justice system. Through these apparatuses, the state has the power to force you physically to behave. Next, we have the ISA, or the ideological state apparatuses. These are institutions which generate ideologies which we as individuals or groups then internalize and act in accordance with. These include schools, religion, family, politics, arts, that generate systems of ideas and values in which we individuals believe or don't believe. Next, we have simulacra and simulation. These are 1981 philosophical treatise by the sociologist Jean Baudrillard, in which the author seeks to examine the relationships between reality, symbols, and society. So what do you mean by simulacra? These are copies that depict things that either had no original or that no longer have an original. While simulation, this is the imitation of the operation of a real-world process or system over time. Simulacra and simulation is most known for its discussion of symbols, signs, and how they relate to contemporaneity. Baudrillard claims that our current society has replaced all reality and meaning with symbols and signs.